Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name is Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk and UK Astrologer. Hello. Now, just a reminder that we are now episode 498, and in 2 episodes' time, at episode 500, we're going to have a special celebration. There's going to be discounts, there's going to be fun, there's going to be a quiz. Because I'm going to celebrate the fact that I've done 500 episodes. Anyway, we're not there yet. We've still got 2 more weeks to go. So today I'd like to cover something that is upcoming. and it will have already happened by the time we get to episode 500, because that's in 2 weeks' time. So what I'm going to be talking about is the upcoming aspects between the 3 outer planets that are going to be weirdly all the same degree. So coming up, because we're not there now, on the 7th of July this year, 2026, I've got the exact chart from when it exactly happens. Uranus is going to be 4 degrees in Gemini, Neptune is going to be 4 degrees retrograde in Aries, and Pluto is going to be 4 degrees retrograde in Aquarius. So those 3 outer planets are going to be having a nice chat with each other because they've all got very friendly aspects, but it isn't often that the 3 outer planets reach the same degree at the same time. It has done it once already, so I'll discuss that chart in a second. Because we're going to be looking at charts here. And I need to give some credit to a guy called Andre Barbault, Barbault. Not too sure if I've pronounced that rightly, but he's a chappie. So he was a French astrologer, and he used the outer planets to predict historical events, one of which was the Soviet Union in 1989, the transformation of the Soviet Union, and the other was the 2010 financial crisis. And he wrote a book, Planetary Cycles, Mundane Astrology, which I believe, I haven't read it, but in there he has talked already about this amazing numerical aspects between the 3 outer planets, which, as I say, doesn't happen every day of the week, because all of those 3 planets all move at different speeds through different signs. Now, the only reason I know about this is because Roy Gillett, who is part of the Astrological Association, of which I'm a member, he's now the president-elect, so he's stepped down from being the president, so he's still part of the AA. He did the editing for the English translation of Andre's books, and we just had a chat this week about something completely different. And he said, because we had a quick because we were talking about something else, and then we had a quick chat about because I said, we've got this 4 degrees thing. He said, yes. He said, Andre had talked about it because he died in 2019. And obviously you can go way into the future with transits. He had talked about it and he thought it was quite unique. Now, what is going to happen because of it is a completely different thing altogether. Who knows what's going to happen? I don't make a lot of predictions about future events for the simple reason I wouldn't be knowledgeable enough to be able to do that. I don't actually spend a lot of my practice doing predictions, simply because I'm a mutable sign and I tend to focus for clients either on the present or something that might have happened in the past that might be affecting them now. So it could be a chart-based thing or whatever. So I don't like making predictions for people, because sometimes they can be self-fulfilling prophecies. So if you were to say to somebody, it looks like you got divorce coming up, they might go, well, Mary said I was going to get divorced, that type of thing. So I'm very aware of, I do discuss in a broader concept what is coming up for a client as far as transits goes, and to be aware of those particular transits. Anyway, just to let you know that I don't do predictions, and I'm not going to make a prediction today. What I am going to point out is the fact that this aspect between these three outer planets certainly doesn't happen every day of the week, is quite unique, and one has to then ask the query, what will happen, inverted commas, because of it, if that's assuming anything happens at all. Now, what I'm going to start with is a chart for someone who was born with the two outer planets in the same signs that they are today, because they're not going to repeat. So the fact that they're in these signs, so Uranus is in Gemini, Neptune's in Aries, and Pluto is in Aquarius, to have all three of them together in those signs, I don't know the maths of it or how it repeats, but I searched and couldn't find that as something that has happened before, that they're in those signs. But what I did find was someone quite unique that was born with a chunk of planets in Gemini, with their Neptune in Aries and their Pluto in Aquarius. So we're going to talk about that person and their chart. We're also going to talk about someone who was born when Uranus was 1 degree into Gemini, Neptune was 1 degree into Aries, and Pluto was 1 degree into Aquarius. So those are all the same degrees in the signs that they are at the moment. And that happened because of all of them were retrograding. But it isn't going to repeat the cycles of the way the planets repeat. The 4 degree thing isn't, trust me on that one, isn't going to happen again. So it's unique and it's upcoming. So the actual aspects between them starts mathematically, when they're all 4 degrees, starts on the 7th of July and continues with them all being 4 degrees until the 31st of July. And then by then, on the 1st of August, Uranus is now 5 degrees. Neptune's still 4, Pluto's still 4 because they're retrograding. But Uranus is moving forwards. Uranus doesn't retrograde and catch back up with those aspects of being 4 degrees. So if you're into numbers, which I am not, but lots of people are into numbers, and if you're mathematically minded, I don't know, there's probably something like, what does the number 4 mean? You'll have to Google that. There are different meanings for things, but what I want to talk about is the fact that this is going to happen, and my question is, what is likely to occur, or what could occur because of it? So it's quite a broad thing to talk about. So as far as the going into the future thing, I'm first of all going to cover the person that was born with 2 of the outer planets in the signs that they are at the moment. Now, this person you might have heard of. They're called Omar Khayyam, and they were a poet. That's mostly what they're famous for. Now, he was born on the 18th of May 1048, and that's using the Julian calendar, so it's not the Gregorian, which we're at the minute. And interestingly, we've got, I think it was an AA rated chart, but don't quote me, we've got the time of birth that they were born, and they were born at 4:50 a.m. in Neyshabur in Iran. So I'm just going to quote you, because he was a poet, most famous for the poet. I'm going to just quote you from the Poetry Foundation that has some information on him. So he was born, and their name was Giyeth al-Din Abu Fath Umar Ibrahim al-Nisaburi al-Khayyami in the 11th century. He was 11th century Persian poet, astronomer and mathematician. Omar Khayyam, so changed his name, was raised in the town of Nishapur in present-day northern Iran. He's thought to have been the son of tent makers, as al-Khayyami translates to tent maker. As a child, he studied first with the scholar Sheikh Mohammed Mansouri in the town of Balkh in present-day northern Afghanistan, and then with the Imam Mawafaq Nashapuri in Khorasan. Many of Khayyam's mathematical and astronomical ideas were not proven until long after his death. His treatise on demonstrations of problems of algebra, 1070, is a seminal text of algebra. In addition to engaging Euclidean geometry, Khayyam offers methods for solving cubic equations and quadratic equations and introduces the concept of binomial expansion. I have no idea what that sentence that I've just read means, because I really am no good at mathematics. But anyway, as part of a team of scientists under the patronage of the Seljuk dynasty, Sultan Jahal al-Din Malashah Seljuqi, Khayyam built an observatory in which he measured the length of the solar year with a precision that loses only one day every 5,000 years. Now that's, if you ask me, that's precise. Okay, as opposed to the day lost every 3,330 years in the Gregorian calendar. He helped to develop the Jalali calendar, the precursor to the modern Iranian calendar, and also built a star map. This is in 1048, okay? He didn't have an iPhone. He didn't even have an abacus, I don't think. He's believed to have built models illustrating the theory of the Earth's revolution on its axis. However, Khayyam is perhaps best known for his work as a poet. The Rubaiyat, his collection of hundreds of quatrains or rubais, was first translated from Farsi into English in 1859 by Edward Fitzgerald. The short poems of the Rubaiyat celebrate the pleasures of life while illuminating the nuanced political and religious context in which they were created. Some scholars believe that Khayyam penned only 150 or so of the quatrains. Peers or predecessors are thought to have contributed the remainder. While still regarded as the most influential, Fitzgerald's translations, which he released in several variations, have since been shown to take significant liberties with the original content of the poems. The quatrains of Omar Khayyam, 3 translations of the Rubaiyat, 2005, includes Fitzgerald's translations alongside versions by Justin McCarthy and Richard Le Gallienne. The indulgent attitudes of many of the poems in the Rubaiyat contradicted many of the precepts of Islam, and it's believed that Khayyam fell out of favour with his court patrons. He died in 1131. So I won't quote you any of your poems. I won't quote any of his poems, because not a lot of people like poetry. I love it, but there we go. So what we're going to be discussing and what we're going to be looking at is his chart. And because he's got a cluster of planets in Gemini, and that's the sign that Uranus is in at the moment, I thought the sort of makeup of his chart and how he tackled life will be similar to, but not the same as, similar to what's going to be going on with this 4-degree thing. And moving forwards, those planets are still going to stay in those same signs for a considerable amount of time. So in his chart, he's got a Gemini ascendant, Sun Gemini, Moon Gemini, Mercury Gemini, Venus Gemini. He's got his Mercury retrograde and his Venus retrograde. I quite like the fact that he's a poet and he's got Mercury retrograde. Bless. He's got Mars in Taurus. He's got his Chiron in Aries. He has his Neptune at 13 degrees in Aries, which is nowhere near where it is at the moment, but it's in the sign of. He's got Pluto conjunct the MC 11 degrees in Aquarius, which is the sign that Pluto's in at the moment. He's got his Jupiter conjunct to it as well. He's got his Saturn retrograde in Capricorn. Saturn's happy in Capricorn. He's got his Uranus in Libra. Okay, so he's got a cluster of planets in Gemini and his Uranus, which at the moment is in the sign of Gemini. He's got it in Libra 2 degrees. Okay, so his chart shape is quite a cluster of planets in Gemini. It's a bit of a bucket, because he's got all the planets on one side of the circle and Uranus is the handle of the bucket. He's got a grand trine in the centre of his chart, linking all of those air signs. So trines will link everything that is the same element. So what was his attitude? Now, according to a guy called Robert Arnott, who contributed to a book in 1903, I'll just give you a little bit of information about the type of person he was. So in this book, which I'll give you the link to, he was a man of reserved character and disliked entertaining. While he was in Ispahan, he perused a certain book 7 times and then he knew it by heart. On his return to Nishapur, he dictated it from memory, and on comparing it with the original copy, it was found that the difference between them was but slight. He was averse both to composition and to teaching. He's the author of a handbook on natural science and 2 pamphlets, one entitled Al-Wujud, or Real Existence, and the other Al-Quran Aktalif. He was learned in law, in classical Arabic, and in history. So it gives you some little sort of things that he got up to and who he met. This is in the introduction to a book of his poetry. So it also says that he was, just give you some little snippets of information here that tells us a little bit about possibly what he was like. Omar is portrayed in various early biographical notices a defender of Greek science, famous for his knowledge of the Quran and the law, and at the same time a stinging serpent to the dogmatic, a wit and a mocker, a bitter and implacable enemy of all hypocrisy, a man who, while curing others of the wounds of worldly triviality, impurity and sinful vanity, himself only, with almost his last breath, closed the philosophic book on healing and turned with a touching prayer to one God, the infinite, of whom he's striving to comprehend with all the strength of his mind and heart. Khayyam's lively protests and his heated words in freedom's cause brought upon him many bitter moments in his life and exposed him to numerous attacks at the hands of the mullahs, especially those of the Shiite community. They regarded, so these are the other people, regarded him as an unbeliever, an atheist and a materialist. But in the course of the centuries, the people of Persia and India, realising perhaps instinctively the injustice of former reproaches, have taken to publishing and reading Omar Khayyam collections side by side, blah, 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 and saying that he's sort of marvellous and stuff. So now we've got a quote from someone that knew him. Seldom has a poet suffered from his friends and his foes as has Omar Khayyam. He's been regarded, says a writer, as a freethinker, a subverter of faith, an atheist, a materialist, a pantheist and a scoffer at mysticism, an orthodox Muslim, a true philosopher, a keen observer, a man of learning, a bon vivant, a profligate, a dissembler and hypocrite and a blasphemer, nay, more an incarnate negation of positive religion and all moral beliefs, a gentle nature more given to the contemplation of things divine than worldly enjoyments, blah, 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 blah. All of this criticism is curious because it's so completely out of harmony with the facts of Omar's life. It's true that no complete authentic manuscript of Omar's is known, and equally true that no comprehensive biography is known, but detailed information has come down to us from his contemporaries. From those notes, enough can be gathered to show that Omar was a great man indeed, one who clearly and forcibly shows 4 sides of the perfect character. So it goes what the 4 sides are. Now, as we know, as modern day astrologers, if someone is a Gemini, they're going to have 2 sides to them anyway. And it was born with the Sun and Moon in Gemini, Mercury retrograde, Venus also in the sign of Gemini. So he's going to flit about the place a little bit like a butterfly. And since his outer planets are in the similar elements as they are at the moment, so even though his Uranus is in Libra, it's still the air sign that Uranus is in Gemini at the moment. It gives us an idea that someone that didn't want to bow down to authority, that didn't want to fit into any specific construct of something. So one wonders, with the planets coming up and being in the same signs, and this funny little thing everything we've got going on, when they're all going to be the number 4, will there be some sort of pushback against political things or the climate? Who knows? We shall see. So that's just a teeny bit about Omar Khayyam. You can Google him, find more information, but I just wanted to just share with you that he has the same planet signs as the outer planets at the moment, and 2 of them, because they're not going to be able to get Uranus and Gemini in the same mix, 2 of them are in the signs that they are at the moment. And with him being near enough all air in his chart, I think there was only one planet that was in Earth. Yes, that was his Capricorn. His Saturn's in Capricorn and his Mars is in Taurus, so he's got 2 Earth planets. He's predominantly in his chart mutable. Really? Yeah. Air and mutability is the biggest things that he's got going on there. So that's where we're at the minute. Outer planets are mutable, and air, and a little bit of cardinal. Is that right? We've got, and one of them is fixed, which is Pluto. Okay. Now, the second person I want to share with you, they were born when Uranus, Neptune and Pluto were in the respective signs of Gemini, Aries and Aquarius, and they were just recently born, with them all being 1 degree. So this is Rhiannon, I think her name is, she's a famous singer. Her 3rd child, Rocki Mayers, was born on the 13th of September 2025 in Los Angeles at 0:38 a.m. So they've got Cancer ascendant, Moon conjunct Uranus in Gemini. They've got Neptune 1 degree, conjunct Saturn, and Neptune's retrograde, Uranus is retrograde, Pluto is retrograde. Pluto's out on its own in the 7th house in the sign of Aquarius, and they were born with the sun was in Virgo and the moon was in Gemini conjunct Uranus. So they have got a splash chart. They're actually an earth sign, which is Virgo, but they're mutable, and their ascendant is Cancer with Jupiter 19 degrees into the 1st house, and I think she's a little girl. 99%. Yes, she's a little girl. And one wonders if she's going to take after mum in some way. She's got sun in the 3rd house. I wouldn't like to make any predictions, but with the Cancer ascendant, mummy is going to be very important for her. But her outer planets form a trine, which is what they're doing at the moment when we get to the exact degrees, that Uranus aspects to Pluto is a trine, and then Uranus to Neptune is a sextile, but it forms a little, I don't know what the word is, it's not, it's a little trine that those 3 planets form. So that's someone that's actually been born with these outer planets the same degree, which again won't repeat. They were born just because they went into the signs and then they retrograde out again. So they just happen to be snapped then. So if you've got any kiddies that were born then, they're going to have those similar outer planets. And we don't know how their life's going to turn out, but they're born under something unique. Now, the 3rd chart we're going to look at is the actual moment. Now, I've done it to UK, I've done it to London, so obviously it's going to be different from where you're located. And on the 7th of July 2026 in London at 1:10 a.m, Uranus will be exactly 4 degrees Gemini, 0 minutes, 0 degrees. It took me ages to get. So I don't have all this software, all these people have got solar fire and stuff, and you can just ask it to do stuff. I was messing about, moving it backwards and forwards by 5 minutes. That's what I did all day yesterday, moving it backwards and forwards by 5 minutes. I want to get to exactly 0 degrees. Exactly 4 degrees Gemini. Well, that's the aspect I'm thinking of, the top of a kite. So I thought it'd be more interesting to look at the chart when this actually happens and treat it like as if it was a person. That's the only way I can sort of, because I do so much natal astrology. I'm no good at mundane astrology. Please don't ask me to do it. I don't have the brain power. So this is the moment in the UK when Gemini goes to exactly 4 degrees. Neptune's 4 degrees in Aries and 25 minutes. Pluto is 4 degrees Aquarius and 44 minutes. And Pluto's retrograding, but Neptune isn't. Neptune's conjunct to the moon, and because it's 1:10 in the morning, there's a Taurus ascendant. There are no other planets in the sign of Taurus. There's Chiron is 0 degrees. It's not a planet, it's an asteroid, and that's in the 12th house. So if we're looking at this as an event or as a person with a Taurus ascendant, it's grounding and down to earth. So it's all about the earth, yeah. Uranus is in the first house. I'm using equal house system here. Mars is in Gemini. It's Mars is conjunct to Uranus, and you've got a Taurus ascendant. So one has to sort of ask the rhetorical question: if this is an event chart, is there going to be like an earthquake going on somewhere? Because Mars and Uranus conjunct could reflect that. And if this was a biological birth of someone, with Taurus being the rising sign, it's going to be a slow birth. The sun's in Cancer in the 3rd house. Mercury's retrograde, 24 degrees Cancer in the 3rd. Jupiter is 1 degree Leo. Hurrah! I'm really waiting for that one. And Venus is in Leo in the 4th. So with the sun being in the 3rd, this is all about communication. Mercury retrograde, are we understanding things? Are we getting things muddled? Jupiter in the 3rd house, teaching, but in the sign of Leo, wanted to sort of show off the teaching. Pluto's retrograde in Aquarius in the 9th, long distance travel, further education, philosophy. And the moon and Neptune are conjunct in Aries in the 11th, which is the house of groups and friendships. Saturn's 14 degrees, which is conjunct to the moon. As the moon is 4 degrees, it's just within orb. Saturn is 14 degrees in the 12th house, wanting the seriousness in life. And if this was a child being born, Saturn in the 12th can indicate that the father is absent at some point in the child's life. Not always, but I have talked about it in a previous podcast. Now, the sun is square the moon, which means that the moon and the sun aren't being too friendly to each other, and the sun is square to Saturn. So as an event chart, the square bits is involving the sun, the Mercury, the Venus, I think that's, and Uranus is square the North Node, but I'm not going to take that into account. And Pluto is opposition to Jupiter, because Jupiter is 1 degree into the sign of Leo and Pluto is 4 degrees. So if this was a person with sun in the 3rd, they would enjoy communication, and with that Taurus ascendant you cannot rush them. But this is the chart for when those 4 degrees all happen. So do go to the show notes where you can see the chart if it hasn't turned up where you're located. And the address is astromary.libsyn.com. And on there on the show notes, you'll see these 3 charts that we've been talking about today. So this isn't a busy chart. There are planets in the 11th, friendships, planets in the 9th, spirituality, planets in the 3rd, communication. Do you know, if I was going to want to be involved in a protest of some description, you couldn't do it at 1:10 a.m. in the morning, that's for sure. But this would be the sort of chart that would make me consider it, because the sun is in the 3rd. It's about communication, and those outer planets are all being pretty friendly to each other. But yeah, you can't do a revolution at 1:10 a.m. in the morning. There's nobody going to be listening to you. Now, since the exact aspects of 4 degrees is going to last from the 7th of July to the end of the month, that isn't a long amount of time. It's 3 weeks and 3 days. And it also is the day that Neptune is going to retrograde, but at 1:10 in the morning, I don't think it does. Did I say that Neptune was retrograding? No, Neptune hasn't started a retrograde at 1:10 in the morning. It will later that day start to retrograde. Mercury is retrograde at 24 degrees, and that started retrograding on the 1st of July. So we've already then had exactly 7 days, so we've had a week's worth of retrograde. Everybody gets the wrong end of the stick during a Mercury retrograde. It doesn't matter where you are, what's going on. So many people get the wrong idea about stuff. But with the outer planets being in air and fire, it's all about energy, it's all about communication, it's all about doing things faster. You know what it means when Pluto's in Aquarius. It's about the freedom to be able to do much, to do collectively. Aquarius is a sign of collectivity, and Pluto's about deep change and transformation. With Uranus being in the sign of Gemini, Gemini's all about communication. Uranus is about sudden happenings. With Neptune being in the sign of Aries, Aries is all about get in there and do it, but Neptune doesn't. It fuzzes and fubbles things, and so it could be the start of something. I don't know. I'm not there, and as I say, I don't do mundane astrology. In fact, I'd like to have your ideas about what you think it might be, and I haven't read Andre Barbu's book, so I don't know what his predictions for that either are. But I wanted to point out to you, if you didn't know already, that this is something that's upcoming. So maybe you've got some views on it, and we'd like to hear those views, and we can discuss them in next week's podcast. So today we've just been talking a little bit about what's coming up, that we're going to have 3 outer planets. They are all going to be exactly the same number degree, which is 4. They're all going to be going 4, 4, 4. They're in air and fire signs. It isn't going to repeat. It cannot go back to those degrees again. It did it the once, which is 2025, when they were all 1 degree. That involved some retrogrades, which can't happen again because of the speed that the planets move. So we have to ask the question, what is likely to happen? But it's all going to be about ideas. The way that aspect is between the 3 of them. Trust me on this. Uranus in Gemini, it's about sudden ideas. Whether or not those are good ideas or bad ideas, I don't know. No idea. And in fact, actually, in astrology, we can't say things are good or bad. So just a teeny podcast today. I hope you're well. If you need a reading, pop over to maryenglish.com. If you'd like to learn astrology with me personally, ping me an email, mary@maryenglish.co.uk. If you've got any questions, if you've got anything you'd like to cover on the you'd like to cover on the podcast, yeah, you can cover it. We'll have you chatting. We'll do it. I don't mind. You don't have to be a famous astrologer to be on the podcast. If you've got some questions and you'd like to speak with me and we can record it and whatever, then definitely send me an email. You do not have to be a professional astrologer to be on my podcast. You can be a astrology fanatic. You can be astrology interested. You could have some queries and we can have a nice little chat and talk about it. Anyway, I hope you have a fab week, and I'll be back next week. Bye bye now.